share a little bit about my story. You see, I was born into a broken home. When I was born, my dad ran away. My mom couldn't take care of me, so she gave me away for adoption. And I was adopted into a family that would pretty quickly fall apart. My mom physically and mentally abused me for much of my life. And of course, I acted out because of all this pain that I walked through. And when I was 16, my mom was done. So the very woman that took me in rejected me, told me I was on my own. And because I had all this pain that I never dealt with, I began to seek this attention and affirmation and acceptance that I hadn't gotten for most of my life. Anyone that gave me attention, anyone that would show me any kind of love, I would seek it. Even after getting married, undealt with pain. And 9 years ago, 5 years into our marriage, I had some weak moments, and I made some poor decisions, and I found myself having a 3-month affair. Devastating. This pain that I refused to deal with in my life because I didn't confront it, I created it in my life and Kalie's and our families. But Kalie wanted to put in some work. And I wanted to deal with some things finally. So we decided together to put in the work. And an absolute miracle. Real quick. This is something that people don't talk about. People don't talk about these things. And if you're walking through anything like that, we're here for you. We'd love to talk to you. But an absolute miracle happened in our marriage.
Yeah, that is the only word and phrase that I can think of to explain what happened in our marriage, a miracle. An absolute miracle happened, and our marriage is stronger than it's ever been before. The character that has been built in us is undeniable, and the love and appreciation that I have for him is deeper than I've ever experienced. And it's because we were willing to put in the work and allow God and his power to do what only he can do. We are a standing miracle in front of you today because we were willing to put in the work and trust in the Lord's power. Maybe you're in this room and you're walking through something else. We went through this, but maybe you have a spouse that isn't putting in any effort. Or maybe you're constantly fighting, or you have a lack of sexual intimacy. Maybe some traumatic things have caused you to grow cold. Maybe the stress of kids has put a strain on your marriage. Whatever it is that you're dealing with, can I tell you tonight, your marriage is absolutely worth the work. Absolutely worth the work. And I remember when I first found out about the affair, obviously, I was going through a roller coaster of emotions. One day I would be fine. And then the next day, I couldn't even function because I was so miserable. And after a good while of going through this roller coaster of emotions, I was exhausted. I couldn't handle it anymore. I was so miserable. And I remember one day where I was in that dark place and I cried out to God and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. And I feel like God gave me this picture. And it was a picture of a pit. And Nick and I were in this pit. And every time that I chose bitterness, that I chose hate, that I chose unforgiveness, that I chose to throw it in his face, that pit would get deeper and it would get harder for us to get out. But if I chose love, if I chose grace, if I chose forgiveness, guess what would happen? I would be digging up dirt and throwing it in the pit. So that's what I chose to do, because I had nothing else to do but trust my God. And so I chose love. When we get in an argument and I really wanted to say something, even if I didn't feel like it, I chose love. When I had a negative thought, even if I didn't feel like it, I would choose truth. And doing that over and over and over, putting dirt in that pit, guess what happened, you guys? That pit was no longer a pit. And we found ourselves on solid ground. Because we were willing to put in the work and trust in God and his power to do what only he can do. Love is what changes things. And love is what changed our marriage. It's the God kind of love. The love that is unconditional, that is sacrificial, that isn't based on what we do or what we don't do. That's the kind of love that changes things. And I want to share a scripture with you guys that many of us know. But when you are going through a hard time, it hits differently. And this is the kind of love that changed everything for us. And I want you to listen to these words in a different way tonight. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. Hear that tonight. Never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance.
I'm thankful for that kind of love. I wouldn't be here without that kind of love. We wouldn't be here without that kind of love. My prayer tonight is that we can love each other like that. Full of hope, no matter what it looks like. Full of grace. A love that would endure through all things. Listen, if love is what changes your marriage, we got to understand it's a two-way street. It's important we give love. We all know that. We need to give it in a way that our spouse can receive it. You've heard the 5 love languages. There's a book about it. If you don't know about it, you should read it. But it's important. It's important we love our spouse in the way that they receive it. And if you don't know, that's okay. That's okay. Ask this one question tonight, your next date night. How do you most feel loved by me? And then when they tell you, do it. Try it. Put in the work. It may not be the way you naturally do it, but do it. Here's the thing, it's also important to be willing to receive that love. How do you do that? Have you ever had someone try to hand you something with your hands full? How'd that go? We've got to be willing to let some things go, to put some things down, to let go of some offense, bitterness, unforgiveness. Let go of what they said a month ago. Let's move forward. Maybe there's some things in your life that you need to let go of that have nothing to do with your spouse. Shame from your past. Anger from past relationships that you're letting creep into this one. We have to let go. Here's the thing, we can't do it on our own. We can't. Philippians 3:13 says this, I don't depend on my own strength to accomplish this. However, I do have one compelling focus. I forget all of the past as I fasten my heart to the future ahead. We cannot depend on our own strength. We have to rely on the Lord to empower us. And when we do that, we'll have marriages that last forever.